political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League of Women Voters is a non-organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or political parties. Both WTAD and the Herald Whig are recording this forum live this evening. The format for our forum will be as follows. The candidates will have a 2-minute opening statement. The candidates have tossed a coin to determine the order of their statements. The 2-minute closing statements will be in reverse order. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates, our timer is seated there in the front seat. Please watch her when answer your questions. And after questions from the panel, we'll have questions from the audience. When writing your question, remember it is necessary to address them to both candidates, and please keep them brief and to the point. No questions will be permitted that are slanderous, a personal attack. League sorters may rewrite questions for purposes of clarity. Please turn off your cell phones if you have not already done so. Other than cameras for the media, no cameras, including cell phone cameras, may be used. We ask that you refrain from applauding or otherwise demonstrating support or non-support for a candidate. At this time, I am honored to introduce the candidate for the mayor of the city of Quincy. Mayor John Spring, the Democratic incumbent, and Kyle Moore, the Republican challenger. And I'd like to introduce our panel, Dr. Brian Borlas, political science professor at Quincy University, Matt Hopp, Quincy Herald Whig reporter, and Carol Sowers, KHQA news anchor. Welcome, panelists. We will begin our forum tonight by asking the candidates for the 2-minute opening statements. And Mayor Spring won the coin toss, so he will go first.
Thank you, Iris. There we go. There we go. Thank you, Iris. I appreciate it. Thank you to the League for hosting this forum. They always do a great job, do a super job with lots of things in our community, and certainly want to acknowledge President Gervasi and Quincy University for the use of the facility here at North Campus. So it's fun to be in this facility, and I know that they had some great things happen this past weekend up above us. But also want to thank the panelists for being a part of this forum here tonight. I'd simply like to open up by saying that you know, I welcome my family who's here, my wife Karen. We'll celebrate 45 years of marriage this year. We got 12. But and my other part, you know, family members that could be here this evening, and I thank them very much. And I also want to thank all the other elected officials that are here, certainly the other council members, including Alderman Moore, who we worked together with on the city council certainly the last 4 years, and former Mayor Hagstrom, who's here in the audience as well. You know, 8 years ago when I was elected as your mayor, I pledged to be a full-time mayor with no outside interests, no outside distractions, and I've lived up to that. And you know, at times it's been difficult for our community, particularly the past 4 years, because the economy has been so difficult for all of us in the country. But we've persevered. We've done what all of you have done. We made the decisions to cut back. We cut back on our staff size. We cut back on our workforce. We cut back on how we were spending monies to make sure that we could continue to provide all those services. We still balance state budgets. We still reduced the property tax rate for the city portion of your bill 7 of 8 times. And we took what was once $156,000 in reserves, and we currently have $1.3 million in reserves. And we did all this by still keeping our community safe and strong, strong economically, working with companies, and working with all those that could matter. So I'm ready for another 4 years.
I want to thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm happy to be here. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I want to thank the panelists for donating their time and the moderator. And I'd also like to thank those of you in the audience here tonight and those who might be listening on the radio. And I'd like to thank my opponent, John Spring, Mayor, for what I hope is a positive discussion on the future of Quincy. You know, the city of Quincy has a special place in my heart. It's a place where I was born, where I graduated college, the place where I have my family business. It's the place where I call home. And I'm running for mayor because many of you are worried. You're worried about the good paying jobs that are leaving our community. You worry about your own finances, as many of you have paychecks that are smaller today than just a few short months ago. You worry about your children, that when they find their chosen field, they won't have a life-fulfilling career waiting for them right here in Quincy. You worry about our city finances, that 20 years from now we're going to be handing them a big bill. And you're worried when it comes to city services that you're not receiving the customer-centered experience that you deserve. Elections offer us a unique opportunity to look at the past, but more importantly, to look at the future. To improve city services, the first day in office, I'm going to ask every department head, are you doing a better job for Quincy this year than the year before? Now, I know every one of them is going to say yes, but then I'm going to say, great, how do we measure that? And then I'm going to implement a community-wide scorecard, which I entitled the Quincy Scorecard, where you can go online and hold the departments accountable for the job they're doing on your behalf. During the course of this campaign, I have proposed a 5-year strategic budget, a 5-year comprehensive infrastructure plan, so we can begin to set money aside for major expenses. And I have proposed a proactive economic plan to bring good paying jobs to Quincy. An economic plan that says we're going to re-engage our existing businesses. And we are going to ignite the mind of our next generation of leaders. I look forward to talking with you tonight about these plans. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Now it's time for our panelists to ask their questions, and we'll begin with Dr. Borlas. Your question goes first to Mr. Moore.
Okay, Alderman, and first of all, I'd like to thank both candidates and all the candidates today for their willingness to serve and their willingness to continue to serve. This is something that keeps a community like ours functioning. Well, there's a couple of things I'd like to ask you. Unfortunately, I'm limited. Perhaps the biggest thing that affects a lot of property owners and homeowners in Quincy today is something that you both address in terms of business versus residential. One of the things we see as a problem some homeowners do is along the Broadway corridor, along State Street, etc., the point at which business and residential meet. And by looking at your statements in advance and looking at some of the stuff that Matt Hupp has written about and your plan for the future, one of the things that almost makes me worried is you quoted, business owners, developers, and contractors should expect hassle-free service from our planning department and engineering department. Does this mean that zoning up into people's backyards is going to be less of a problem for new businesses, or are you going to be able to hold the line for homeowners versus businesses?
Not at all. First and foremost, as an alderman, I've worked with neighbors in my ward to protect them from encroachment from commercial zones. And what I mean by hassle-free service is that we need to tell our story that Quincy is a good place to build your business if you want to move here. I'm in the commercial floor covering business, and so I deal with contractors from out of town all the time, and they tell me what a great department that we have in our planning and development department. But we also have to be mindful of the needs of our building community, which is why I proposed a contractors hour hosted once a quarter inside city council chambers with members of our planning and review committee, so that way we can stay plugged into what the building needs are. And you know, I think it's important to have an open dialogue with everyone that we serve, which is why I've been proud as an alderman to host 2 town halls a year, giving constituents the opportunity to ask me any question they please. I have pledged to do that as a mayor, and I will certainly have open hours for anybody that's wanting to build a business, build a home, and have a life here in Quincy.
You'd like me to answer the same thing, Professor? Thank you. Well, that's why we have a comprehensive plan, and that's why we've been working on a new comprehensive plan for our community. Because I do believe in the Broadway corridor study. I do believe in the historic Quincy district study and the German Village studies. All these that have been compiled over the years, and now we're working on the long-range plan for comprehensive. What that entails is both resident, commercial, industrial, manufacturing, so that we know what you want as residents, what you want first and foremost. As you know, just last evening we had discussion in regards to this, and we had speakers there at City Council, which are always welcome to come and speak about these type of issues, because we don't want intrusion into the residential areas. Our planning department does a wonderful job. Chuck Bebelheimer is one of the best, hardest working city planners I know, and his staff do an incredible job of working with our developers, working with residents. You know, there's a lot of opportunities for permits and other things, but we want to make sure that we don't intrude into the neighborhoods. Those should be protected at all costs, and I think that the city has done a really good job of putting this together, and we had 14 meetings in preparation for this new comprehensive plan that we hope to pass in the next couple of meetings.
Mr. Hopp, your question goes first to John Spring.
Well, I'd like to thank.
Okay.
No,
You're good.
I'd like to thank both of you for being here tonight. It's not like I haven't seen you guys recently. Both of you have said that government does not create jobs, yet both have made job creation part of your platforms. How can a mayor affect job growth in Quincy?
Me first? Yeah. This is me first. Simple. You know, the mayor cannot create jobs by himself. He has to work with the groups that can, most importantly, work with those industries to retain jobs, job growth. In our case, we have a partnership with Great River Economic Development Foundation in the County of Adams. I'm saddened that we reduced our funds to Greta, you know, budget cycle. That hurts that. I will again push to restore those, if not add more funds to. The economic tool that we have there is to create an environment for good jobs, to create an atmosphere where we can work with those businesses. You know, most recently, I know all of you have been concerned about Harris and Gardner Denver. Well, I can tell you that I've reached out to both of those CEOs. Both of those people I have talked to individually, most recently with Michael Larson from Gardner's, and they've assured me that they want to keep that business here, keep it healthy here. That's what a mayor does. A mayor reaches out. Many times you don't reach out publicly to talk to people. That's where Greta comes into play. That's where all of our partners in this area, from all the different entities that comprise economic development. That's why we have to have a strong city council. We have to be, you know, there at the forefront of trying to retain jobs first and foremost. And I know through our revolving loan fund, that's a good example where we've been able to retain 500 jobs and we've created 227 new jobs.
I think a mayor has to have a long-term vision for the economy in Quincy, which is why last week I proposed what I call Job for Quincy's Future Plan, which relied on first re-engaging our existing businesses to find out how we can better serve their needs. Second, to incentivize our businesses to be partners in our economic development and offering them incentives if they help recruit a supplier into Quincy. And to ignite the mind of our next generation of business leaders by a Downtown Quincy Startup Business Program, which sets a small amount of TIF money aside to help startup companies located in downtown Quincy. And lastly, we need to have a conversation in the community on what do you and I and our families want Quincy to become in the future. 20 years from now, will Quincy become a medical destination for West Central Illinois? Or perhaps we become known nationwide for our startup companies. Whatever we want to become, I know we have the people and the resources to make it happen. We just need to take that precious first step, which is what I want to do as mayor. And I think, how do we know? We got to know where we're going to find out how we can plan how to get there. And that's what a mayor needs to do.
Elsa, is your question first to Mr. Moore.
A larger population would benefit Quincy in many ways. So what would you do to help the city's population grow?
Well, it starts with jobs. You know, everyone in Quincy deserves to have the life-fulfilling career they dreamed about as a child. And since 2005, we have seen an uptick, a drastic uptick, in the number of people who are unemployed in Quincy. According to the Illinois Department of Employment Security, in 2005, there were 916 people unemployed in the city of Quincy. Today, that number has rose by 812 people. Over 1,700 people are now unemployed, we have to do what we can to make sure that our families are doing well. You know, according to an Illinois Kids Count survey, the average income for a family in Quincy over the last 10 years has decreased 14%. And we're not even keeping up with the state average. That's not good enough. And we need to make sure that besides providing educational opportunities for our children, besides educational opportunities for our adults, that we're working every day tirelessly to make sure that we're doing what we can to knock on companies' doors and tell them that if you want to move to Quincy, the city government, our city council, and our people will be here with open arms and tell you we welcome you, and we will do what we can to get you to move here.
Population, you know, first and foremost, I'm happy to say that our population went up in our city limits. That's not true in too many cities around this area right now. It didn't grow up by that much, but it certainly did go up. But if you look at our daytime population, that's what's important, because we're a regional hub, and we have over 60,000 people daily in our city for services, for medical services, for manufacturing, for business, for education, for healthcare. So that's why we see a much bigger uptick during the day. And when people come to visit here, they can't believe we're only 40,633 on the green signs. The largest Quincy ever was in 1975. That was just a little over 45,000 people. And then it worked its way down with the loss, of course, of Motorola, Firestone. Almost 4,600 jobs were lost at that time. It started to rebound under Mayor Schultz, and it's continued to rebound under me. So we have to continue to do that. We continue to look for ways to annex. We know that there's areas that annex into the city would provide more growth for our population. But remember, we're not considered a metropolitan area, but a micropolitan area. Northeast Missouri, West Central Illinois, combined are 77,000 people. That's why we take advantage of programs like the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's offered to us even though we're under 50,000 population, because they consider us a micropolitan area. So we will continue to do that. Education, schools are very important if you want to grow your community. Thank you.
And Dr. Borlas, your next question to Mr. Spring.
Well, I'd like to ask you. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to ask you both two sides of the same question. In your campaign materials, I've gotten some stuff from Mayor Spring's office, and I've been researching Alderman Moore's plans. And both of you tend to, well, obviously criticize one another's approach to various things. In a handout I got from Friends of John Spring, and again, I'm going to ask Mr. Moore to comment on this. He says that you voted against economic development and job creation, and you voted against youth education and quality of life on April 23rd, 2012. All right? Are you still opposed to children and jobs? And can you explain that vote in terms of the conclusion that's made by your opposition candidate?
Dr. Borlas, I need to remind you that the question has to be addressed to both candidates.
Well, I'll let them both explain
Okay.
that conclusion that
Is that
Alderman
something-
Moore is opposed to children and jobs based on the April 23rd vote. I think that would be just fine if both of you could respond to that.
Sure. Would you like me to respond first? I put factual information on my campaign materials, and it's the fact that my opponent here, Alderman Moore, did vote against funding Great River Economic Development Foundation at the, and he did vote against all of our not-for-profit groups that have been receiving monies from the city. Most of those are geared towards children. I was opposed. Obviously, I didn't have the opportunity to vote on either of those issues as the mayor, but I do feel that those were wrong decisions.
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that. First, the vote. The reason for the vote, there was a $500,000 increase in our workers' compensation premium, so the city council had to take a proactive approach to find out how we were going to pay for it without raising your taxes, without borrowing money. And so many members on the city council worked to develop a plan. And part of that plan did include phasing out subsidies phasing out payments to subsidies over a 5-year period. Many people don't know this, but for many years, in fact, I believe since the 60s, the city was paying donations to charities, and it's hard for us at City Council to pick winners and losers because we all have our favorite charities. And I find it a little disingenuous, and in fact, it really is offensive to me for somebody to say that I don't like children. I have 2 nieces that I love. I have a nephew. I was a big brother and big brother, big sister for 11 years, served on their board. I served on the board of Redmond Lee Youth Center. And this is politics as usual, and we need a break from that here in Quincy. And the way to turn the page on politics as usual is to vote for me on April 9th, and I hope you'll join me in doing that. Thank you so much.
Can I just add one thing? That might be true, except the money went into the ward funds. When they removed the money out of those accounts, it went into their ward funds. So I'm not so sure that that is exactly what the alderman is saying here. But that's okay. We can move on.
Thank you. And Mr. Hoff, your question first to Mr. Moore.
The Illinois General Assembly has considered reducing shared revenues with local governments in recent years. One proposal in 2012 would have cost the city $2.9 million. How would your administration address such cuts if they occur?
Well, first we have to look at all programs across the board, and we have to have a discussion in the community on what you want the city government to provide you. I mean, I think the mayor had said, I believe it was 2 years ago when that happened, that it would be drastic cuts for the city, and I don't think either one of us would deny that would happen. So first, we have to look at the bottom line and what that's going to mean on a day-to-day basis. We have to look at our head count, and we have to look at the services we provide and take a look and ask residents, is that the service that you want us to deliver for that price? And once we come up with that, we can develop a plan with our citizens, our department heads, and the city council.
Well, the local government distributed fund, those are shared revenues with the state of Illinois. And actually, years and years and years ago, the cities used to collect their own taxes, but the state thought they had a better idea by collecting those taxes for us and then distributing back our share. So we've had to fight for that ever since. You may not know, but I sit on the Illinois Municipal League Board of Directors. I'm also their Sergeant at Arms, so I'm one of the officers. And I'm in Springfield quite often to testify against potential legislation, potential bills that harm cities. Our objective the past couple of years with the league has been to save our cities, to be proactive, to talk to both our representative and our senators to make sure that they do not take revenue. Currently, there is a bill right now, on top of what they talked about in 212, that would freeze those local government distributed funds at the 212 level. That's not good, because when you calculate that based upon the 2.5% to 3% growth rate in our state, that would mean that the city of Quincy, based per capita of about $11.83 a head, we could lose $470-some-thousand. So believe me, I will be back to Springfield to talk about these issues. I've talked to Senator Sullivan, Representative Tracy already. This is not a good idea. Those are our monies. You all earn those monies right here by working, by paying income tax, by paying sales tax revenue to the state.
Thank you. And Carol Sowers, your next question to Mr. Spring first.
Thank you. You both talked about jobs and the importance of job creation for the future of the city of Quincy. With a new man taking over the helm of the Great River Economic Development Foundation, what, if anything, would you like to change about the city's relationship with Greta, and why?
Well, I'd like to make it even stronger. I think Marcel Wagner, who I sat on the search committee to select the new president of Greta, brings a wealth of knowledge, 20 years of experience to the helm. And I think working with Marcel and their board, along with the county, along with Les Post and the county, that will strengthen. But we really, this is a critical time that we should be putting more money into economic development. We should be working with our economic development leaders to make sure that first and foremost, we can retain jobs in this community. Second, that we can grow jobs in this community. There's some great examples. Back in 2008, when we had the second most devastating flood in this region, the worst that we had seen next to the '93 flood, we had 2 brand new industries move into Quincy. And they moved in because of the work of the city and the county and Greta, and the fact that that levee held, that 500-year levee held. So it's not an easy job, but you've got to every day be working with your partners. So I look for Marcel Wagner because he has a wealth of experience. He's worked internationally as well as nationally to really create a strong partnership with the city and county. And we want to be a part of that, and I pledge to you that we will work hard with them, and I want to restore that money.
Well, I had the opportunity to meet Marcel at the Monday night, and we had a long conversation today, and I can't think of a better man to lead our economic development firm. And, you know, some of the things that he brought to Lima, Ohio, was measuring performances, long-range planning. Those are the things that I've talked about in this campaign, not only in our city services, but in our economic development. And I think it's important. I think he's going to be a good partner. And, you know, many of us on the city council, the decision to walk back the funding to match what the county did for Greta was a bipartisan decision, and 14-0 was the vote on that. And many of us did it because we felt like we weren't a part of the process, that there wasn't enough input from city council, not enough buy-in from the community on the job they were doing. And I think this is a great fresh start for the city of Quincy and for Greta. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm not happy farming 100% of our economic development effort out to another firm. As mayor, in Quincy, we need a champion for Quincy. And as mayor, I will be that champion. I will go out and knock on businesses' doors and say, listen, you may not have heard of our town, but this is what we have to offer you. And that's what we need. It's too important of a task to farm out 100% of our economic development responsibility to Greta. They're a great partner, but we can't just solely rely on them.
Thank you, candidates. And that is the end of our questions from the panelists, and we'll now take questions from the audience. So the first question will go first to Mr. Moore. The city's infrastructure, specifically sewers, need extensive work. What are the plans to pay for it?
Well, it starts by having a discussion in our community on a long-range infrastructure program, which is what I have proposed during my first year in office, is to come up with a 5-year comprehensive infrastructure plan that meets our needs for our streets, our sidewalks, and our sewers. And it's going to be an expensive endeavor, but I can tell you this, we're going to either, one, identify a revenue stream so we can help make our payments, or two, we're going to identify budgetary savings, because many people don't know this, but your property taxes in Quincy primarily goes for our pension obligation and our debt. So anytime we have unsupported debt in Quincy, that places a greater strain on you, the property tax owner, and ties the hands of future councils. So, you know, there may be some borrowing involved in that, but we're going to do it with community input, and we're going to make sure that we have a revenue to pay off any borrowing that we may have to do.
Oh, good. I can get to answer it. It is a problem. You know, you've maybe heard me say this before. We have 300 miles of sewer in this community. We have 274 miles of water lines. Think about that. That's traveling from here to Chicago and back. That's a huge amount of infrastructure just with sewer and water, not to mention the infrastructure of our streets and our sidewalks and our guttering and everything else that goes into it. We have a separate enterprise zone. That's what our water and sewer program does. Under David Kent, who is our superintendent for the enterprise zone for the utilities department. That's why you have a rate for water and for sewer. That's where we use those funds. We keep those funds. We're required to do that. We're required to do that for repairs. I don't know how many of you tried to come through 18th Street tonight from the south, but you couldn't get through because we had a water line break. We know that we have combined sewer issues here, and the EPA has been working with us along with the Illinois EPA. But it's a massive amount. But don't think for a moment, simply because we have old sewer lines in certain areas of town, that means that they will fail. You have to remember what we've gone through, particularly this past year with the drought. The ground has really caused a lot of problems for us. We continue to always service this. This has been an ongoing problem. It is for any city that's there. In our newer parts of town, we seldom have problems. In the older parts of town, we have to constantly be trying to make things improve. But we definitely will work towards providing the best service possible.
Okay, and the next question will go first to Mr. Spring. How would you improve the number of minority employees in city government?
Good. Very good question. Always one that we're looking to try to improve upon, to reflect what our society looks like, to reflect what our community looks like. Number one, I've probably appointed, I know that I have, appointed more young people to commissions and committees in the city of Quincy than anyone that sat in that chair before. Second, we have tried, particularly within our police and fire departments, to encourage minorities to be a part of that testing program, to become part of our program as a firefighter or a police officer. Likewise, some support staff that we have that work for the city of Quincy. That's something that we always want to do. Your city government should mirror what your community looks like. The best way that I know to do that is have strong schools in our community. If we don't have a strong public school system, those minorities, as well as those of us that are not a part of the minority, we're not going to be educated well enough to take some of these jobs. These jobs for the city aren't just people that ride, on a garbage truck, or people that, clean our streets. There's a lot of opportunities in the city. We want to continue to always be open to minorities, to be a part of, our overall focus. Each of the people that work for the city are very proud of their work each and every day. So I always pledge that. The Human Rights Commission knows that. I've worked with them many a time on this issue.
Well, I think we have to make sure we're having a long-term and constant dialogue with every member of our community, no matter the economic. I served on the Human Rights Commission, and I can tell you one thing that we probably need to expand is our. A lot of times hard for many of you and I to understand the walk that other people go through in their life. And what I found when I did the study circle is I had a lot more empathy for people and they went through in their childhood and their lives. And I think when we do that, when we open up our hearts and we open up our minds, then we don't see people, welcome them into our city, and they could be employed in our city government, or hopefully, they can find a career and start a business themselves. So I think, we have to keep an open dialogue, engaging the community on how we can better serve their needs, and tell them we are here to serve on behalf of.
Okay, the next question, first to Mr. Spring. Do you plan to privatize any services such as transit, garbage, recycling? What happens to city employees if this happens?
Okay. You may know, or you may not be aware that we have started the process once again of looking at garbage and recycling from all different perspectives. We provide that service in our community here. We do a great job with it. I've heard many a positive comment about how we pick up garbage and recycling. And we do contract out for your yard waste, but we have aging equipment. We're looking at this. We have a bipartisan group of council members that are working with us as we study this issue. It's not anything that is different than any way that we've done it in the past, and certainly we want to make sure that we do what's right for you as the citizens. Now, we do have a great opportunity that we took advantage of a few years back at our wastewater treatment facility. And that's a combined effort. That's a public-private partnership. We have American Water presently down there. There's 2 employees with American Water. They supervise the plant, but the workforce there, the 9 workforce, are members of the city staff. That could be a possibility if that were to come up, but it's very premature to consider that. I think one of the things that we realize is that when you provide that service with your own people, if somebody gets missed, we go back and pick up their garbage. If somebody gets mixed, I see head shaking, we go back and pick up their recyclables. It's a process we have to go through every so often. We may have aging equipment, but that's why we have mechanics, and the mechanics keep that equipment running each and every day.
The reason why we're having this discussion about our garbage and recycle fleet, and to give a little history, in 2001 the city borrowed $1 million to buy 5 new trucks. We paid that loan off with interest in 2006. We've known that the average lifespan of a garbage truck is 10 to 13 years, yet we've set no money aside. This is why implementing a 5-year strategic budget will help us, because now we're forced with talks of privatization or borrowing more money. As an alderman, I want to make sure that, 1, the services to my constituents do not get cut, and as mayor, I will make that same pledge. And at the same time, we have to have a plan that is fiscally responsible, so we're not drastically increasing our debt level, and also we're not 100%, we're not letting go of anybody, and we're making sure that everyone in Quincy, if you have a garbage and recycle need, that we're meeting your needs, and we're meeting your needs in a timely.
Okay, the next question, first to Mr. Moore. Will the city continue to share and develop bandwidth for the internet with academic institutions?
Yes.
you know, we have an INET network, and we've had many a partner on that, a lot of our schools, other institutions, the library is very much a part of that. So we're always looking to improve connectability. You know, we're blessed with the fact that we have some fiber optic now within the community, within the downtown area. Certain groups have been able to take advantage of that, which helps to provide better internet service. It's extremely important, as you know, in the historic Quincy Business District, when we were able to put Wi-Fi in Washington Park, actually all the way down to the river, you can get Wi-Fi. So we know that technology is moving forward. That's why we created a new website. I hope all of you have gone to that, www.quincyil.gov, if you haven't. But it's important. That's the tools of the future. That's the tools that all of us use each and every day. So we have to provide a stronger signal, which is a part of the bandwidth.
In this question, first to Mr. Spring. What are your specific plans that are new for Quincy's future?
Well, I think that first and foremost, you want to remain fiscally sound. That will always be my #1 goal, and make sure that we have a safe community, not just for those of us that live here, but certainly for our visitors each and every day. But I think as we look towards the next few years, particularly the next 4 years, there's things that come to mind. Obviously, we've talked a lot about jobs, and we know that jobs are at the utmost, the top importance, but also we have to look at how those jobs can be created. I'm excited about the fact that Congress is finally going to start to do something about WRDA, the Water Resource Development Act, and possibly funding that with the lock and dam situations. Also, looking at the Port Authority. As you know, I've been in Washington, D.C. before to try to earn those dollars for us through Tiger grants. That's extremely important for us as the port. The port could provide a strong future for us here. We want to make sure that we get that bypass finished up in Macomb. I've been a part of that highway division and highway committee that's worked diligently on that. In addition to that, I want to see our schools become stronger here in our community. Again, I want to harp on it, but if you don't have a strong school system, you're not going to have a healthy community. If you don't have a healthy community, it's pretty hard to get jobs. If we have jobs and good companies and they're healthy, then your community's healthy.
Well, I think we have to have a mayor who's going to have innovative solutions and a long-term vision for Quincy's. And what I just heard is a lot of generalities but no concrete plans. And I think we have to look for other cities and how are they doing business, and maybe take their best practices and bring them here to Quincy. I talk about a Quincy scorecard. St. Petersburg, Florida in 2001, Mayor Rick Baker, when he got into office, he wanted to find out how long it took them to fix a sidewalk repair beginning to end. He found out it took an average of 30 months, so he tracked it. And now today it takes them 3 months to do that. Boston Mayor Martin O'Malley wanted to track their long-term problem with absenteeism, and so he used Excel and PowerPoint. And the first year alone, the program CityStat saved his city over $6 million. We talk about a long-term budget, a 5-year strategic budget. There are cities in Illinois who do this. Peoria, Urbana, they do comprehensive planning. We need to bring that here. And we need innovative solutions for our jobs. We need to look at what communities in Illinois are bringing in businesses. You know, I talk about Belvedere, Illinois, about 950 jobs over the last 2 years. And they did that by having an incentive package which includes having businesses be able to get an incentive if they help bring one of their suppliers into their region. So, you know, I've got concrete ideas that you can look up on my website, moreforquincy.com, and concrete plans for the future, because I think that any elected official, if you don't have a plan for your 4 years in office, you become dictated by the crisis of the moment.
Thank you. And the next question goes to Mr. Moore first. Recently, there has been a trend in city government to send a message to Washington. What do you think should be the relation of local and national politics?
Well, I think all good government starts at home, and we have to be your voice. And if there's something that the state or Washington is doing that we don't agree with, that's our job. And so I think the relationship is for one, is to make sure that they're working on your behalf and use whatever relationships we have to let your voice be heard. And to also make sure that the policies of Illinois and the policies of our nation that you and I know that we don't agree with, the crippling debt that we're leaving for our next generation, that we don't have that practice right here in Quincy. So I see that it's important for us as elected officials to be your voice and to be your advocate.
Right. That's why we don't have that problem in Quincy, Illinois. There's trillions and trillions of dollars in debt with our nation. Nobody likes Congress right now. The state of Illinois, $9 billion they owe vendors, plus $96 billion in pension costs. Not Quincy. We got reserves, folks, remember, $1.3 million. We balanced our budget. We have lowered your property tax rate. In addition to that, that's why I go to Springfield, to protect our revenues. That's why I did sit for 2 years on the National League of Cities, was a part of their infrastructure, was a part of their transportation committee, and I also sit on the United States Conference of Mayors transportation as well as their housing committees. That allows you to network with the appropriate people. But we have, state representatives, state senator, we have 2 United States senators and 6 congressmen that serve this tri-state area. So, those are the important people that we reach out to and work with to make sure that we do things for the best interest here. But as I said before, Quincy, Illinois is a shining example of what can happen if you do things properly.
And the next question, first to Mr. Moore. Mr. Springs, excuse me. Every city would like to control its own power source. Discuss how you would ensure our citizens see a benefit in the hydroelectric plan.
Well, the hydroelectric plan, which has, of course, been a pretty hot topic during this campaign, I guess that's an understatement, right? We put our best foot forward, and we thought that we had something that would benefit our community. We worked hard. We hired the best of consultants. At the end of the day, the Federal Energy Regulating Commission decided that they didn't want to approve our license for Lock and Dam 21. Now, keep in mind, we still have permits to others, but focus on 21 for a moment. The idea was to use the river, which flows every day at our doorstep, to produce that power. It's renewable. If you don't know, the state of Illinois by the year 2025 has to have 25% with those companies to produce power. 25% has to come from renewable sources. That could be solar. It certainly could be hydroelectric. There's no question about that, and wind power. But they have to meet that obligation. State of Missouri, by the same time, has to have 21%. We were trying to provide something for our community that we thought was good for the future. But as I said, at the end of the day, FERC didn't like that. And I remember Senator Mark Kirk standing up in front of 350 people at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, the Hall of Fame luncheon, and he said, hey, don't blame your city officials, don't blame your mayor, blame the Federal Energy Regulating Commission. They're the ones that took this away.
I think it's important on a project like hydropower that ultimately the buck should stop with the mayor's office. And we could have chosen to do things different. We could have chosen not to put 100% of the risk on you, the taxpayers. We didn't. And this is a project that, best case scenario, was going to break even. Now, how many of you in your homes would do that? Not too many of you. And we have to be more conservative with our money than you would be in your home. And this is a project that we could have spent our energies and our monies on other things like bringing in good paying jobs to the city of Quincy. We lost $5.5 million of your money. $5.5 million. That's $5.5 million that we can't redo our streets. We can't redo our sewers. We can't fix your sidewalks. When we came up with our payment plan, we passed off $1.47 million of capital cuts to a future administration. That project, and continuing on with this project, is not moving Quincy forward. It's costing us money. And we need to take a clean break from this and say, you know what? We tried it once. We lost money. Let's stop it. Let's focus our energies on other projects that will help improve the quality of life here in Quincy.
And this question first to Mr. Moore. Do you have a position on same-day or payday loan companies? Are they in need of more regulation?
Well, I believe that would be something that's regulated from the state level here in Illinois. I think if a business is operating within our zoning and wants to come here in Quincy, if it's allowed by the state, it's not up to me to pick what businesses can and cannot move into the city. So again, I think that would be probably regulated on the state level.
It is regulated on the state level. Secretary of State, if that business is in good standing with the state of Illinois, meets all the qualifications and regulations, they would have that opportunity to operate their business. I, for one, think it's difficult sometimes because they take advantage of those that maybe don't have the means to know that they may be getting themselves into more financial trouble. But at the end of the day, if they are approved by the state of Illinois, they still have to go through our process. They still have to go through the process of obtaining those permits to operate a business in the city of Quincy, but we really can't stop them based upon that. Let me back up for 1 second. I just want to remind you that when Alderman Moore presented his plan to repay the hydro, it was going to cost us $700,000 more in interest, and Alderman Moore made the comment that night that he thought the administration's plan was the best.
Okay, and this question first to Mr. Spring. What is your position on concealed carry?
Well, my position is the same position that I've had since day one when it was first introduced into our state as a possibility, that I'm in favor of concealed carry, with the stipulation that people receive the proper training and they follow the state laws that are governed by that will be fulfilled and regulated by both our police department and sheriff's department here. But I'm very much in support of that. People have the right based upon the rules of our Constitution, and I do not oppose that and never have.
I am for concealed carry, and I certainly, as mayor, would not join Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which has fought the NRA tooth and nail for the last few years. And I want to go back to what my opponent said about my plan to repay our hydro debt.
Excuse me, just stick to the question, please.
Okay. Hey, go. Well, I will paraphrase this. If somebody has an idea that is better than mine, I'm not afraid to admit it, and I don't have all the answers. And in government, sometimes we propose something, especially me being a part-time alderman. You try your best, but if somebody comes up with something better, that's okay. There's no right or wrong. We're all in it together, and we all love Quincy. So I'm not ashamed to say when full-time people come up with something, a plan to address a complicated issue like that, that, you know what, they did better than I did. That's okay. We can do that. We're human. We can admit it. And the reason why I proposed something like that is because we weren't talking about how we were going to repay that debt, and I did it to get the conversation started. And it's important as leaders that we be proactive in addressing our concerns here in Quincy and the things that we need to address. So thank you for letting me answer that.
Okay, the follow-up questions have to come, and it's a 30-second answer, sure. But it has to be a follow-up to the question, so please keep that in mind. And this question to Mr. Moore, do you have plans on how we can improve tourism in Quincy?
Well, sure. I think our tourism industry is growing here in Quincy. They're certainly doing a great job. We have great partners in Rob Ebbing and Holly Kane and the Hotel and Visitors Bureau. I think we need to have a proactive approach and talk to them about what other communities are doing that we're not doing here in Quincy, and find out perhaps we can implement them in our city code, and as mayor, be an active partner in going out and getting tourism here in Quincy and getting conventions to be here in Quincy. I think we just have to be a better partner, engaging them and giving them the tools they need to succeed.
It's been a real honor to work with Travis Brown, the Executive Director of the Historic Quincy Business District, and certainly with Holly Kane, our Tourism Director, Rob Ebbing, as the Alderman said, with the Oakland Civic Center. But when you look at what's taken place here, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years in our downtown area, that has attracted more tourism. When you look at what we did with our Lincoln Douglas issues and doing, the reenactments and the bicentennial and Lincoln's birthday, when you look at the improvements that have been made in the downtown area, and 95% of those storefronts are filled now, and we've been able to hold, big other organizations in the downtown area like the Adams County Health Department to build a $30 million Croc Center. All those things have attracted people here. We continue to work on that each and every day. Part of the role of mayor undoubtedly is to work to try to provide an avenue for tourism. Most recently met with the Latter-day Saints from Nauvoo and from Salt Lake City to see if we can't strengthen that position.
And at this time, that concludes our questions from the audience. And each of you will have a 2-minute closing statement. Mr. Moore, you may go first, please.
I want to thank everyone again for the opportunity here tonight. My opponent is asking you to give him one more term of the lead, and based on the leadership that he provided over the last 8 years. And let's look at the record. According to the Illinois Department of Employment Security, there are 812 more people unemployed in Quincy today than in 2005. The Illinois Kids Count did a study and released in 2013 and said that the average income for a family in Quincy has decreased by 14% over the last 10 years. We're not even keeping up with our state averages. We've lost $5.5 million of your money on a project that is a at best a break-even scenario. And a citizen, one of our neighbors, was denied the right to speak in front of the city council. My opponent talks about lowering the tax rate, but your tax bill is larger now than it was 8 years ago. Your water and sewer bill have increased in the last 8 years. Quincy deserves leadership that will listen to you, that will respond to your needs, and assess the job that we're doing on your behalf. I have offered plans to make this happen, and on April the 9th, I ask for your vote. I ask for your vote because Quincy needs a mayor that will provide innovative solutions and a long-term vision for Quincy. I thank you.
Well, first and foremost, thanks again to the league, thanks to our panelists, thanks to the media that are here. Really great to have these kind of forums. I know there's a forum that will follow us, and I plan to stay for that as well. But on behalf of my family, I want to thank all of you for entrusting me as your mayor over the past 8 years. It's been a wonderful experience. It's truly an honor to serve all of you each and every day. And I pledge to you that I'd be a full-time mayor, that I wouldn't have any outside distractions, any outside interests, and I've lived up to that. I've lived up to that even through some difficult times, both in the city and personally. But I've been able to do that. And I think that when you look at what we've accomplished here to keep our community safe, to keep our finances in order, to have 8 years of balanced budgets, to reduce the city tax rate 7 of the 8 years, to have reserves, to be able to focus on those quality of life issues day in and day out, make sure your garbage is picked up, your recyclables are picked up, make sure your yard waste is picked up. That starts the 18th, by the way. Make sure that you can turn on your faucet and get clean water. Make sure you can flush those toilets and they go through our water treatment facility. Those are day in, day out examples of how a city works. We have to continue to move forward. That's why I've taken a very active role with the state to try to make sure that we keep our community safe, to make sure that we keep our community fiscally sound. And I pledge to you I will always continue to do that. So I'm asking you to support me on April the 9th as your mayor and continue to move our Quincy community forward. I can't do it by myself. I can only do it with all of you. Thank you very much, and thank you to the league.
Thank you, Mary Spring and Mr. Moore. And this concludes the first portion of our program tonight. And if we'll take just a few minutes to set up our tables.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is how you guys to give one question. Thank you.